Trucker Dump, episode 152. In today's main topic, we talk about how you know when you should switch trucking jobs. But first, lots of news involving COVID, new elog information for both the US and Canada, and lots of changes coming this year due to a new presidential administration, including a scary one involving sleep apnea testing. Also, truckers stick it to California, yay! Walmart and driverless trucks, the big UPS sellout, new vision and testing standards for CDL holders, and of course, the obligatory truck recalls. In the listener feedback segment, we'll hear about hatred of elogs, a driving school and training story, COVID vaccinations, and I get called out by a 15-year-old. We'll also hear about a great barbecue joint in the Trucker Grub segment. And I'll also briefly discuss my best Christmas gift and my run-in with the fuzz. This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by Volvo Trucks and Pilot Flying J.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey, Trucker Dumpers, how's it going out there? For those of you new to the show, my name is Todd McCann. I'm a 23-year truck driver. Been LTL last couple of years. Most of my life was spent over the road, and much of it was teaming with my wife, who is, well, lovingly referred to as the evil overlord. Yes, she approves of that name. I am also obviously a podcaster, and I'm the author of 2 trucking ebooks. One is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, and the other is called Trucking Life. And if you missed that deal that I had going for the buy one, get one free offer of those books, well, it's a little too late. Although, quite honestly, I haven't gotten that changed over yet. It was supposed to end on January 31st, and, well, it's the 1st, and I haven't changed it over yet. So, if you hurry and you're hearing this, you might get that deal. 50% off, like I said. Buy one, get one free, basically. It's, $9.99 for 2 books. How's that for a bargain? Anyway, there'll be a link in the show notes to that. And even if you did miss the deal, it's always 25% off when you order both books on the website abouttruckdriving.com. So it's only $14.98 for both books. So check that out. Oh, and it was also brought to my attention recently that somebody wanted to actually donate. They didn't really need the books, but they just wanted to donate to help the show. And there's actually a way to do that on the site also at abouttruckdriving.com. Any of the blog posts in the sidebar, there is a donation button, and there's a way to give monthly if you'd like, which this person did. That was very, very kind. Not necessary, obviously, but, hey, if you want to, hey, I'm not going to refuse your money. Anyway, so hey, it's been a while since I talked to you. Let's see. Yeah, it was actually just a little after Christmas because I know that episode was weird. I don't want to hear from anybody. I haven't so far, thank God. But yes, I realize I recited the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas trucker style a few days after Christmas. I get the irony of that and how screwed up that is. But boy, it's hard doing podcasting around the holidays. You got so much stuff going on. I'm honestly thinking about just skipping next December, just announcing it in advance that there will not be a December episode. We will see about that. Maybe I'll, for once surprise myself and get ahead of schedule and have something in the box ready to go. But let's not hold our breath on that one, right? So anyway, I hope you had a good Christmas and a good New Year's. I thought this Christmas was going to be pretty standard for me, but I end up getting surprised by the evil overlord with an Apple Watch, which for me is a perfect gift because, a gift isn't like socks, underwear, things that you need. It's like, well, nothing wrong with that, but, if you can afford it, it's nice to get something that you probably wouldn't buy for yourself, but if somebody else gets it for you, you would love it. Well, that's what the Apple Watch is for me. I've wanted one for a long time, but I didn't really have a use for it. Well, now that I got one, I can honestly say I love it. It's great. I got the new one, the Series 6. And for those of you not in the Apple world, you probably don't know this, but Apple released a new thing called Fitness Plus, and it's basically workout sessions, and you follow along in the video, and it incorporates with your watch. So as you're watching it on your phone or your iPad or your Apple TV, it, displays your watch information on the screen, which, gives your heart rate, and it lets you know how your heart rate is compared to other people who have done the workout before, things like that. It's kind of a neat thing. There's a 3-month trial of it, and I'm going to try it. And I've been doing that. And quite honestly, the beginner ones are really, really easy. I mean, super, super easy. But then once you switch into the other ones, well, I did a HIIT workout the other day. That stands for high intense interval training or something like that. And it was intense, and my calves are burning. Basically, I'm walking around with all my tippy toes because it killed me. But hey, I'm going to stick with it. We'll see how much progress I made after 3 months. See if I lose a little bit of my gut that I'm getting from being a unionized nighttime driver now. So anyway, that's my story with the Apple Watch. The only other thing I was really concerned about was that it has features to kind of help you get moving and remind you to move, like to take deep breaths now and then. It's got a stand feature, which I was worried about. It was like it wants you to stand so many times per day, like per hour, once per hour kind of a thing. And I thought, if that thing nags me for 11 hours, I'm going to be really pissed. But I've got it on a low setting, and so it's not nagging me all the time on that. Another really cool feature during this COVID time, it has a hand washing feature. It sounds really cheesy, but it's really kind of neat. I don't know if you know this. Most people do. But, if you don't wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, you're basically doing nothing, because it takes about 20 seconds to kill germs on your hands. So the Apple Watch has a built-in feature where it recognizes the motion of your hands when you're washing your hands, and also it will listen for running water, and it will start that timer. And at the end of 20 seconds, it will tap your wrist basically and say you're done. And well, it'll even say good job. So it's kind of a neat little thing. Even while you're washing your hands, you look down and it's got little bubbles coming up on the screen and stuff. Kind of cheesy, but I just love it. It's a neat little feature. Anyway, well, that was a good thing that happened. The bad thing that happened to me is, well, driver complacency. We've talked about this over and over and over when it talks to safety. I've said in episodes, I think it was 95 and 104. I'll put a link in the show notes to those. How important it is for us drivers to keep our focus on the road, and how hard it is to do that 11 hours a day. Well, I got busted the other day. I'm cruising along just in my own little world. I'm driving down the road, and next thing you know, I hear whoop, whoop right beside me. And it's like right beside me. And I think, okay, well, that's obviously for me. And I see the lights and I pull over. And the state trooper comes up on my passenger side, opens the door, and he says, "Are you tired?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Are you sure you aren't tired?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I've got 4 hours left to drive. I'm fine." I said, "Why? What did I do?" And he said, "Well, you failed to scoot over for a maintenance vehicle, and there was nobody beside you." And I got to be honest, I was surprised. I did not see them. I think I was just in one of those zones as you go down the road and not really paying attention. Sometimes we just get in these stupors, and I know it sounds very unsafe, but when you drive for 11 hours, it's going to happen. It is impossible for a human being to focus on the road constantly with 100% vigilance for 11 hours. It's just impossible. So anyway, whatever happened, I guess there was a maintenance guy on the side of the road putting up road construction signs, and I did not scoot over for him. I apologized to him. I explained I had a podcast, and I was always preaching this kind of stuff on my podcast. I even asked him if he would like to come on the podcast and discuss busting me for this, as just a real live example of, what can happen to you. Well, he was very friendly. Actually, he came back and gave me a warning, and he said, I'm giving you a warning, and I'm giving that to you because you were. Now, here's the lesson in this. Always stay vigilant if you can. And the second lesson is always be nice to cops. Because when he came back, he gave me the warning and said, "I'm giving you this warning because you were polite, you were friendly, and you fessed up to what you did. And then he gave me a quick little brief lecture about how important it was to stay focused on the road and to scoot over when we have incidents like that happen. And I told him I totally understood, and I apologized, and I went away with a warning. Actually, before I went away, I got to ask him about all of the epidemic we have in the trucking industry right now of trucks pulling over on the shoulder for who knows what reason. And he is well aware of it. I said, I wish you guys could give those guys tickets every time you see them because it's very unsafe. And he said, well, we do when we see them. He told me his last one, he pulled up alongside them. He went up to talk to them, asked them why they were parked on the side of the road. And the driver said he was making a sandwich. And the really sad thing is he was in sight of an exit ramp, to which the cop pointed out. So anyway, I appreciate this officer. All I know is his first name starts with an A. I cannot pronounce the last name, honestly. So maybe it's good I didn't have him on the show. I couldn't pronounce his last name. He said he could not come on the show anyway. They had public relations officers for that. But I didn't want to talk to a public relations officer. I wanted to talk to the guy who busted me. So anyway, like I said, just a reminder, keep your eyes peeled. Try to stay as diligent as we can out there. I know it's impossible, but we got to just keep trying and focusing. And thank you to the Indiana officer who let me off. That was very kind. Wow. Dodged a bullet there. And while we're on the subject of people pulling over on the shoulder, if you are one of these drivers who does this and are not broken down or don't have a really, really, really good reason to be on the side of the road, you are a moron. Just saying. Seriously, there's exit ramps for whatever you got to do. There's rest areas. There's truck stops, whatever. The side of the road off an interstate, U.S. highway, whatever, is not the place to be doing your business, whatever that business may be. Unless you're broke down. That's the only reason. No other reason. Don't make excuses. All right. So, I guess there's actually 3 lessons in that story. 1, be diligent. 2, be nice to cops. 3, don't be a moron who parks on the shoulder of an interstate. Okay, so we're, 11 minutes into this podcast, and we haven't really got started yet. So, I used to tell long personal stories about, my life at the beginning of these episodes, and I had always heard you just need to get right into the episode and quit, jacking around. Well, I did that for a while, and now I broke the mold. So anyway, all that to say, I hope you're having a good new year so far, and I hope you had a great Christmas. Hope you got to give some good gifts and receive some good gifts. So with that, let's move on to the news. All right, the first story we've got is from overdriveonline.com, and it's about overdriveonline.com. Seriously. Oh, they're just announcing a new look for their website, and I gotta say, it is a marked improvement. It looks much more modern. It's easy to navigate. Just really like the new look of it. So I'll put a link in the show notes there, and you can go check it out yourself. And again, always thank you to overdriveonline.com and the team over there who puts together such great news and helps me to do this podcast. Appreciate it. Well, we like to get the truck recalls out of the way, so let's go do that. First one is from Daimler. About 4,300 Freightliner Cascadias affected. Apparently, there is a potential to have a set of steer tires that was installed from the factory that could malfunction. So, could blow out or whatever. The models affected are 2020 models to 2022 Freightliner Cascadia sleeper trucks, and they will be equipped with Bridgestone R284s, R268s, or R283S. That's the Ecopia steer tires. So check that out. There's a link in the show notes to the recall number and all that good stuff, and the 1-800 number if you're affected by this. They will obviously replace those tires for free. And the second one we got involves Volvo. They've got about 6,300 model year 2021. Boy, there's a lot of them here. VNR, VNL, VHD, and V8 Trucks. Now, Volvo is very good about contacting these people who own these trucks and letting them know that this is happening. So they'll get this fixed ASAP. This is the recall number, of course, is in the show notes here. I should mention the show notes. I mentioned it earlier. They are links, clickable links that are in your podcast app. If you have a podcast app, just search for them. Swipe right or left or down or up or down or whatever, somewhere in there if your app supports it. If not, you can go to abouttruckdriving.com, search for episode 152, and all the links are at the bottom of the blog post there. And again, link will be in the show notes to this blog post also. So anyway, I'm just going to read this entire paragraph because I don't understand it, and maybe you will. It says, the recall alert says the collets, internal jaws, for the brass fitting inserts used in the pneumatic pass-through plate may have been damaged during leak testing, which could cause the brass fitting to completely release the air brake line from the pass-through plate while under pressure. If this occurs on the park brake circuit, signal pressure that holds off the mechanical spring in the park brake chambers will be lost, allowing the park brakes to apply. Okay, well, doesn't sound good, but I don't understand all of it. Hope you did. Anyway, for more information on this recall, check out the link in the show notes. Enough of recalls. Speaking of brakes, let's jump over to thetruckersreport.com and talk about the road check inspection blitz that took place back in September. It was the 9th through the 11th. This is the big 3-day event that is held in United States, Mexico, and Canada. Apparently, they inspected over 50,000 vehicles, and, well, here's the shocking thing about it. About 25% of those trucks were placed out of service for equipment violations. How you like that? The most violations were, in order of amount here, are the brake system, tires, lights, cargo securement, and brake adjustment. But here's another disturbing aspect of the story. Apparently, about 3,200 drivers were placed out of service for failing to meet requirements. Again, in order of amount of out-of-service failures here, the top one was hours of service violations. Boy, that seems weird with elogs nowadays, doesn't it? But okay, whatever. Then next was other, including moving violations, cell phone use, etc. And then there was driving with the wrong class license, false logs, and driving with a suspended license. False logs in this day and age. I'm guessing lots of people are using PC, personal conveyance time for moving loads on down the road. I'm guessing that's what's happened. I can't imagine how do you falsify your logs nowadays? Anyway, and 141 drivers were out of service for driving with a suspended license. That's interesting. I'm guessing they're all owner-operators because I think a big carrier would catch that. They're usually spot on with that kind of stuff. They're going to know about that stuff immediately. Anyway, very disturbing. We really got to get our acts together. If we expect to be, respected as truck drivers, maybe we ought to take care of our equipment and our licenses and important things like that, and not drive on suspended licenses. Just saying. All right. Link in the show notes to this one. This one's at thetruckersreport.com. All right, let's head back over to overdriveonline.com for the biggest story recently that came out. I'm sure you've already seen or read about it. This is the blockbuster deal for UPS Freight selling to TFI for approximately $800 million. All right, now if you're like me, this came as a shocker because I thought, oh my God, UPS is selling out. Well, reading further, it's not UPS parcel service. The parcel delivery service is going to operate as normal. They say they want to concentrate on being better, not bigger. So they're still going to operate. UPS will still be operating, up to more than 27,000 tractor trailers. And, they're also going to have their freight brokerage still, which is called Coyote Logistics. Didn't even know that existed. They're going to still have their cargo airline and a lot of other assets. But they're going to focus on delivering packages. Apparently, I didn't know this, but this comes to working with guys who have been in the industry for a really long time. So it's good to have coworkers who know something about this. They explained this to me that apparently UPS bought, I believe it was Overnight, many, many years ago, trying to get into the truckload business and the LTL stuff. And it just wasn't working for them. And they've been trying to get rid of it for years. Now, I had not heard anything about this. According to UPS themselves, they said they generated $3 billion in revenue in 2020 with the UPS freight division, and they just broke even. So I guess TFI thinks they can turn it around. They think they're going to be able to raise the profit margin on this. I guess we'll see how that works. Anyway, TFI is a big Canadian company. They own lots of things. I believe they owned CFI. You've probably heard of them. They might still own them, actually. I think I saw a trailer recently that said CFI, a TFI company or something like that. Anyway, they kind of operate independently, and that is what they are planning on doing with this UPS freight division. They're actually going to change the name, call it T-Force Freight, but it's going to handle LTL and truckload business. So they're hoping to expand their services. And also as part of this deal, which I might add is not complete yet. They've got to get all the financing together, but it looks like it's pretty much a done deal. But they said as part of this deal, they're actually going to be helping each other out for like the next 5 years. So UPS has promised to give so much of their freight to the T-Force, and then T-Force has promised to make so much of their loads available for specifically UPS loads. So it's kind of a guaranteed, hey, we'll give you some freight, and guaranteed we'll handle your freight. So both parties benefit. I guess that's good to go into a new business deal like that, especially for 5 years, kind of help you get transitioned over, and maybe T-Force can make a profit out of this thing. Anyway, I assume they know what they're doing. They are a huge company. So anyway, if you want more details on this, well, that's really about all that's out right now that I can find. The initial reports were just that UPS was selling, and it's really surprised me, but now that I know what's going on, not so much. So anyway, like I said, if you're interested in this, check out the link in the show notes to overdrivealon.com. All right, who here would rather be kicked in the teeth by a horse than hear more about COVID? I know I'm one of those people. Oh, I'm so tired of it. But here we go with a lot of COVID news. First up, MATS. Yep, you know it, the Mid-American Trucking Show. They are going to reschedule, hopefully, their show. It was due to take place on March 25th through the 27th of this year, and they are considering moving it to September 16th through the 18th, or even just postponing it until next year, which I guess would be basically canceling it until next year, March 24th through 26th. They will know and make a decision by February 15th of this year. So if you're planning on attending that, it is a huge event every year. It's the biggest trucking show in America, as far as I know. And lots of business deals made there and stuff like that. Lots to enjoy. So it looks like that's going to be canceled, at least for now. And, you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all if this was postponed until next year, or canceled, depending on how you want to say it. Postponed sounds better. Canceled is probably more accurate. But, you know, with the COVID virus shifting right now and everything, it's mutating and wreaking more havoc. So we'll see. I mean, the vaccine is coming out. We'll have a story on that in a little bit. We'll see how that all plays out. But for now, just don't plan on going to the Mid-America Trucking Show for the foreseeable future. Link to this one on the new overdriveonline.com. All right, I told you we'd get to the COVID vaccine here in a minute. Well, didn't realize it was the next story, and here it is. This is all about how truckers have been recommended for the third group to get the COVID vaccine. Now, we had thought maybe we'd be in the first group because, you know, truckers are so important to the economy. Then they thought, well, the second, and then they moved us down to the third. And hopefully by the end of this article, that will be explained as to why that is. I think it makes sense, honestly. But anyway, the first group they're calling it Phase 1A. They are people in long-term care facilities and healthcare personnel. this makes perfect sense. Phase 1B consists of people 75 years older and frontline essential workers. Now, they're defining that as first responders, teachers, manufacturing workers, grocery store workers, public transit workers, and more. And the reason they are classified as more important than truckers is because they are basically, COVID has been shown to be more contagious if you are in an enclosed space for a long period of time. So these grocery store workers who are standing in this place and there's lots of people coming in and out all day, or factory workers who's enclosed all day work. That kind of makes sense. Teachers with all the students. That makes sense. So when you look at it that way, it does make a lot more sense. So we are going into phase 1C, and that's where we belong. And these are people 65 through 74 years old, and those people 16 through 64 with high-risk medical conditions and other essential workers, which, of course, includes us. Now, the thing I am interested in is how many, we're all concerned about when we're going to get it, but how many are actually going to take it? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. I know truckers are an independent bunch. I know a lot of them are not really buying into a lot of the COVID stuff, and they're less enthusiastic about taking a vaccine that was rushed through the process. So I'm just kind of interested to see that even though they offer it to us, how many are actually going to take it? If you have an opinion on this, you already know what you're going to do. Please write in and tell me about it, or send a little audio comment, 3 minutes or less, hopefully. You send that to truckerdump@gmail.com. And for hopefully our last COVID story, if nothing comes breaking news at the last second, you remember a month or so ago, the FMCSA came out and said, hey, truckers, don't expect us to keep extending these waivers for CDLs and medical certificates and all that kind of stuff. Well, they backtrack on that pretty darn quick, because they were saying, they weren't going to extend anything past December 31st. Well, guess what? They're already extending it. So this applies to CDL holders and CLP. That's a commercial learner's permit. Or if you need your medical certificate, you are going to be able to, if it expired, any of those expired after March 1st of this year, you will be eligible for an extension until September 1st. So you have up until September 1st. Honestly, I'm a little confused by this. Maybe it's because I live close to Joplin is not a huge town, but it's a decent sized town, and I didn't have any issue. I had a DOT physical due the other day. I got the paper from my company. I just went down there. I was the first one in line. I just walked in. It was a 10-minute thing, with filling out the paperwork and everything, and I was out of there. I went to my local DMV, and it was I was literally in there for 5 minutes. Literally, no lie whatsoever. I walked in, grabbed a number, sat down. She called my number. I went up there. $2. It was they added it to my license, and I was out of there. So I don't understand what the big deal is. Maybe these bigger states, bigger cities probably are having a lot more trouble with it, but not so much where I live. So anyway, if you've got one of these and you've been putting it off, getting it updated, well, you have now until September 1st. Again, I'm going to say don't wait until the last second, especially if you have hazmat and you need it for your license. You got to get that stuff started at least a month early. I'd say probably 2 months early at this point because of the COVID. You do not want to be stuck like I cannot drive for my company without a hazmat license. So I would be screwed if I let that lapse. Like I did last time. Oops. I won't make that mistake again. It didn't matter at my last job, honestly, but it does at this one. All right. Of course, there's a link in the show notes to this, or driveonline.com. We've talked extensively about the comfort the new Volvo VNL series provides, but ultimately, trucking is all about the bottom line on your financial statements. And with fuel being a third of your operating costs, That's why it's so awesome that Volvo now offers the new fuel-efficient D13 TC engine as standard equipment on all VNLs. Check out volvotrucks.us for more info. The D13 Turbo Compound is 6% more efficient than their D13 and up to 11% over their 2015 engines. That ought to make your wallet a bit thicker. You know, Volvo accomplishes this bit of magic by using a new wave-shaped piston design that burns fuel more efficiently. Any excess energy is then recaptured and reused by the turbo compound unit. Heck, this D13 TC bad boy even adjusts torque to the weight of your load. Dude, it's like we're living in the future, man. But hey, I can't explain the way the D13 TC works nearly as well as a short video can over at volvotrucks.us. So head on over to volvotrucks.us and check it out for yourself. Or heck, just tap the link in the show notes to go straight to the video. And thanks to Volvo Trucks for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump and for saving us money at the fuel pumps. Money, 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 money! Okay, you listen up. I need you to take a deep breath right now, okay? Ready? In through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay, now we're getting ready to get into a part of the podcast that, well, I'm going to be skating on thin ice here because, like I've said many times, I try to keep this podcast as far from politics as I can, but I'm going to have to, don't turn it off yet. I'm going to be as fair as I can. I think you'll see if you continue to listen that I am fair in my assessments here. You be the judge of that. Send me an email if you don't like what I have to say or you disagree. truckerdump@gmail.com. But there's no denying we just went through a really stressful election. There are still some doubts in some people's minds. There is not doubts in other people's minds. There is conspiracy theories going around. There is attacks on a Capitol, which I might add was condemned by many. And yet while they were still saying that, BLM protests and things like that were, to be praised. And I believe I saw somewhere where Nancy Pelosi recently, well, not recently, a couple of years ago, praised a group for attacking a Capitol building. So we're talking double standards here. Welcome to politics in America. Goes for Republicans, goes for Democrats. They all are hypocrites. But anyway, I will be talking about some political stuff here. Again, I will try to be as fair as I can. But there's no denying we just went through a change. So Biden is our new president. And, well, like I say, there's going to be some changes. So one of the first things he did was put a freeze on pretty much everything Trump put up. Everything Trump suggested that was in the works, he put a regulatory freeze on it until they can look at it. They say they need at least 60 days to, to go through all of these policies and see what they're going to do about them. Yet, at the same time, by the way, this article is on overdriveonline.com about the regulatory freeze thing. Okay. It's a pretty short article, not that much going on there. But at the same time, they say they're putting a freeze on things. Biden has also signed in 42 executive orders. Okay. 42. Man, that's a lot. And before you people on the left decide that this is a good thing, just try for 1 second to put yourself on the opposite side of this. What happened if when Trump came in 2016, if he had signed 42 executive orders, getting rid of pretty much everything Obama did? Trump was compared to Hitler a lot. And what do you think the talk would have been if he had signed 42 executive orders? So while it's good for your side now, think about if the tables were turned. Okay. So you can see why some of the right are very upset about this. So anyway, I'm going to put a link in the show notes to prove this. This is a CNN article, so this is, friendly to the left, and they're even saying this is 42 executive orders. And another website that I will put a link in the show notes shows how this compares to other presidents. For example, in the first 12 days of Biden's administration, he had 25 executive orders. Okay. The next in line is Barack Obama with 9. Donald Trump comes in at 7. Then we got Clinton and Bush, George W. Bush, at 2 each. So, all right. This comes from, lots of people said that Trump was a dictator, often comparing him to Hitler, right? Something I might add is not being said about Biden right now. Interesting. Now, there is another quote going around that is saying that Biden once said, let me quote this so I don't get it wrong. Yeah, the quote says, "You can't legislate by executive order unless you're a dictator." Now, I looked this up. I saw the actual quote, and this was, in fact, taken out of context. He was not implying that as a blanket. He was just saying there are certain things you cannot do. For instance, in this instance, he was talking about raising taxes, and you can't do that unless you're a dictator in a third world country. So basically that was taken out of context. So people are trying to use this against Biden, saying, well, he's the dictator, he's the one making all the executive orders. Trump's not the dictator. Well, okay. He didn't say that, but the actions here are clearly that the government is going to take control here. They are going to, again, this is not even a question. Anybody who is on the right or the left knows that just part of the Democratic platform is that they typically think that government should run more things. They want more regulation. They think they can take care of things and handle things. Now, the way they've handled Social Security and lots of things, I don't understand how anybody thinks that's a good idea. But then again, I am a conservative, and I think there ought to be less regulation for the most part. Some things need regulation, lots of things don't. But we're getting lots of executive orders here. So we shouldn't be surprised if there are going to be lots of changes coming up in the industry, in the trucking industry specifically. Again, I've got links to all of this little stuff here. That's about all I'm going to say about those executive orders right now. But, like I said, when they put regulatory freezes on things to stop things that Trump had in, going on, then it shouldn't surprise you that there are 42 executive orders, all basically reversing everything Trump did. For instance, this next story is about a split sleeper pilot program. Now, the FMCSA wanted to implement this. They wanted to get this pilot program started. They wanted to, get like 200 to 400 drivers to participate and, just test out and see if we could do some more sleeper berth options like 6 and 4 and 5 and 5 splits to go along with the 7 and the 3 and the 8 and the 2 that we have now. Again, this was all implemented before the transition of the president, and he's, like I said, Biden's already said he's going to put a lot of freeze on a lot of things. So it would not surprise me if they don't just put a pause on this whole pilot program until they, until they sort it out and get people in position and all that stuff. This article, if you're interested in what they're planning on doing, if it goes through, may be irrelevant by the time you read it, but overdriveonline.com. Okay, this next article I found on thetruckersreport.com. This one is called, "Here Are All the DOT Officials Appointed by President Biden So Far." Okay, here's where we're getting into more change and more of me tiptoeing through the tulips. Let's just say. Okay, the one we're most concerned about, of course, is the Department of Transportation, right? Because they run the FMCSA, and that's who pretty much governs us as truckers. Well, Biden tapped, and let me see if I can pronounce his name right, Pete Buttigieg. I think that's his name, Buttigieg. Yeah, that sounds right. Anyway, they don't expect he's going to have any problems getting in, being confirmed for this position. And that, quite honestly, is what disturbs me. Because here's the deal. Everybody knows Biden is concentrating on making a diverse cabinet. He said as much when he was quoted saying this cabinet will be more representative of the American people than any other cabinet in history. That's what he told reporters in December. Okay, I've got no problem with this. I'm all for diversity. And, I think it's important that we represent a wide variety of people in our government. That makes sense. But here's where I draw the line. When you don't have the experience to do the job. Okay. Now, if I'm spitting all over myself here because I'm trying to be careful, but here's the thing. Everybody probably knows from the presidential election or the presidential primaries that Pete Buttigieg is a openly gay. He's one of the first openly gay politicians. Hey, that's his business, whatever he wants to do. But it almost seems like he got this job because he was gay. And here's why I say that before you hit the stop button here. This article goes on to say he doesn't have much experience with major policy initiatives in transportation. And I went to look this up, and here is his background. He went to Harvard. He majored in history and literature. He went to Pembroke College in Oxford, where he got a Bachelor of Arts in philosophy, politics, and economics. And then he did work in the energy, retail, economic development, and logistics for 3 years. Okay, so he's got basically 3 years of a part of his job was logistics law, it sounds like. Okay, so there's that. He's got 3 years and pretty much no experience doing major policy changes. All right. Again, don't hang up yet here because here's the interesting part. They passed over somebody named Polly Trottenberg. Now she's going to be the Deputy Secretary of Transportation, and she has lots of experience here. For instance, she worked under Obama and Biden in that administration, and she was always pushing for bridges and roads, and she's got lots of experience pushing things through. Even a lot of Republicans support her because she is just very good at this type of stuff. And it talks about her long line of experience. Okay, well, she has so much experience in this. Why was she passed up for this job? She's a woman. She's a minority, right? Which I honestly don't get that one honestly either. Because, like 51% of, women and men in America, but I digress. I guess what they're saying when it comes to diversity on that is the type of jobs that women get compared to the type of men. That men get. So I will stand down on that one. But it seems like to me that this Polly Trottenberg would be a much better choice for the DOT secretary, but she's just a woman. She's not gay, and that's not diverse enough, and again, I find that disturbing because you can't just look at a cabinet like this and say, we're going to go for diversity. Nowhere in his quotes did he talk about qualifications. Okay. Now I will give you that the one Trump, actually the one I think Bush before him had put into, maybe it was Biden. I don't remember. Somebody put Elaine Chao in there, and she's been in there for quite a while, and she didn't have a lot of experience in it either. So like I said, this is both sides do this stupid stuff where they put somebody in the position for whatever reason. For instance, Elaine Chao was a Asian American, and, maybe that's why she was put in there. Who knows? But whatever the reason, it just seems silly to me. I mean, can we honestly look, Democrat or Republican, can you look at this situation and say Pete Buttigieg, which with his very little of experience is the best candidate in the United States for this job? I don't think we can say that. In a similar vein, nothing to do with trucking, but this just goes to show again, Rachel Levine is going to be tapped as the first Secretary of Health, and he, however you want to say it, is transgender. It's a man who identifies as a woman. So to be fair, this is a doctor. They have lots of experience in the industry, so I get that. Maybe they're the best candidate for it, but are you honestly telling me that of all of the candidates in the United States for this position, that this person is the most qualified. Are they? I don't know. But one thing we do know is they are transgender, and it fits the whole diversity goal of this administration. Again, I have no problem with diversity whatsoever as long as they have the qualifications to back it up. So anyway. Now, one thing I will agree with Biden on is his appointment of the deputy administrator of the FMCSA, which of course controls us. That is the Federal Motor Carriers Safety Administration, for you non-truckers listening. He nominated a lady named Mira Joshi or something like that. Now, this woman is qualified. She worked for the New York taxi service, basically controlling all the taxis and the Ubers and the Lyfts and all that stuff, all that kind of stuff in New York City. Very well versed. She worked for different companies, transportation companies, a CEO for many years. She is very qualified, it looks like. And that sounds like a perfect job for this woman. Now, she is not the main person. She is basically in charge of the day-to-day running of the organization. So we'll have to see how that goes and who he's actually going to name as FMCSA, the head of the FMCSA. Now, if you recall in the last podcast, I think it was the last podcast, we were talking about how Todd Spencer from OOIDA was wanting in there. And he was wanting to be named as head of FMCSA. Well, the more I thought about that, the more I thought, that's just not going to happen because one, Todd Spencer is all about deregulating the trucking industry. He doesn't, he would love to get rid of elogs, and those are never going away. So I just can't imagine a Democratic run government who thinks that regulation often is the answer to everything. I just don't see them putting Todd Spencer in there, who is going to fight them all the way on every bit of restrictions and rules they put on us. So I don't know, maybe he would have been the best man for the job after all, because he would have fought the hardest for us. But, they're not going to put anybody in that position who is against regulation. So sorry, Todd Spencer, but we're just going to have to keep you as OOIDA director, which is probably good for OOIDA. So keeping in line with all of this regulation talk and how, the Democrats typically like big regulation more, let's head over to this article on overdriveonline.com. It's called Trucking Trends to Watch in 2021. This is an article explaining kind of what things are probably going to happen with a more regulatory administration. As an example, let's look back at the Trump administration. This article says that as soon as he got into office, he put the stop on some stuff himself. He put a freeze on stuff. And honestly, I can't blame Biden for doing this because pretty much every president has done that. They put a freeze on everything that was going on at the time and they want to reevaluate it. So I don't really fault Biden for that, and just like I didn't fault Trump for it here. Only this case, it worked in truckers' advantage because when he put out an executive order to stop some things for the regulatory freeze, it was to stop DOT from implementing things like speed limiter mandates and more intense sleep apnea screening and testing. And there was a rule that was going to raise the minimum amount of liability insurance required. So we've talked about that before and how damaging that would be to the industry. Well, Trump put a stop to all that stuff, but they're saying in this article that it wouldn't surprise them a bit if all of this stuff's going back, going to be right back on the block, and we're going to be worried about it again. So owner-operators, for instance, this insurance thing, the minimum liability is $750,000 right now. And they're talking about raising that up to $2 million. So, that's really going to damage owner operators, and it's going to really benefit all the lawyers out there. So it's just a bad thing all the way around, but hey, it is what it is. And, just look at your vote and the way you voted and see how you like it at the end of 4 years. Let's just say that, and that goes for both sides, if maybe, you'll find you're a Republican and you're more happy with the Biden administration than you thought you were going to be. I honestly hope that is the case. But as a staunch conservative, I don't hold out much hope on that. But hey, to each their own. But anyway, it's just basically saying they're going to expect more regulation. Like I said, there's a highway bill coming due. One of the things Pete Buttigieg is talking about doing is changing the taxes, like the fuel taxes. There hasn't been a fuel tax raise in many years, I guess. And I didn't know that, but there hasn't been a significant fuel tax change in many years. And he's thinking about changing that into like a mileage-based thing. So, depending on, you'll pay taxes according to how many miles you drive per year. First off, I don't know how they're going to verify that. Are they going to go on trust, or are they going to have access to our car data? They are computers nowadays, they might have access to it and be able to actually see how many miles we drive. That is just more invasion of privacy if you're into that sort of thing. But you can just see where this is going. There's going to be, like I said, I'll just cap this off by just saying, expect more regulation on the trucking industry. And, well, you get what you pay for. Man, I tell you, this is stressful for me. I do not like this. I like to stay away from political stuff as much as I can because I know I have liberal and Democrat listeners out there, both sides of the aisle, and I don't want to anger anyone. You're entitled to your opinion. I have my opinions, honestly, and I try to keep them out of this show as much as possible. We are here to discuss trucking stuff. Sometimes that does cross into politics, and that's just the way it is. But I try to keep that stuff out of the podcast for everyone's sake so we can all just get along. There's enough fighting out there. I don't want you not listening to the podcast just because you don't agree with me politically or socially in some instances. So anyway, are we done with this politics stuff yet? Well, kinda. Not really. Because we're back to the sleep apnea thing. Yes, this is on overdriveline.com, and there is something called stop bang protocol, and it's a new way to test sleep apnea. And they're saying with this new stop bang protocol, again, you're going to have to read the article in here because I don't really understand what that means, but it's, like I said, it's a new way to figure out if people have sleep apnea. But anyway, this article says it's finding that half of truck drivers could need sleep apnea evaluation. Half. Okay. That is a big number. What are the new guidelines going to be? I don't know. They said they did a test in 2020, and using this stop bang thing, they found that nearly half of the 20,000 observed truck drivers potentially had sleep apnea. So, what are they going to do? Make more strict guidelines? Do we have to answer more questions? They lower the neck size from 17 to 16 and a half. I was a headbanger when I was in high school. When I was young, I headbanged a lot. I had a 17 and a half, almost 18-inch neck at one point in my life. Thankfully, now I'm down to 16 and a half, but it's still kind of a large neck. It's right on the border of sleep apnea. And I can guarantee you, I don't have sleep apnea. And I know that because the evil overlord is a very light sleeper, and she would notice if I quit breathing for long periods of time. Of course, that's not counting the time when she's holding a pillow over my face. So anyway, these are more guidelines you might expect to come in during this administration, where we have to start going for mandatory apnea testing. Good times. And now, thank God, I think we're done with the political stuff. I hope you made it through that. If you have differing opinions, if you think I went overboard in one area or another, please let me know. Again, that email address is truckerdump@gmail.com. If you do send an email and it is very politically biased one way or another, I will not be reading it on the air. I'm not trying to piss people off and start a big argument. I actually, something happened in our Trucker Dump Slack group. Link in the show notes if you want to join that group. I mentioned I had an offhand statement about the app Parler. I just mentioned it in passing and it started a ruckus in there. It was my own fault because I broke my own terms of service saying we're not allowed to talk about politics in there. It was just one mention of one app that was in the social, political, sphere right now that everybody was talking about, and boy, it took off. I had to put a stop to that pretty quick, and thankfully we're all still friends because we've got some differing opinions over there, obviously. So anyway, just trying to stay away from that stuff now. Okay, let's move on fast. All right, let's get on with some actual good news. Well, at least we hope it is. And we're going to go to fleetowner.com for that. Link in the show notes. This one is titled, Looking Forward to a Trucking Rebound in 2021, Leading to a Very Good 2022. Okay, what they're saying here basically is, despite all of the regulations and things that could be taking place, despite all the COVID, actually because of the COVID, that the freight is going to continue to be good. And part of that, according to this long article, if you're really interested in financial stuff and the markets, then you might want to go take a look at this one. I'm not particularly interested in that stuff, but I want a good year as much as anyone else, right? So basically they're saying a lot of this revolves around like drivers, and it's harder to get drivers nowadays. It's harder to get them through the system, to get them through the truck driving schools, to get them out here on the road. They're less people interested in it because of, how much travel is involved and, that kind of thing. They're also saying that drug testing, they've got some new drug testing going on in place, and that is causing drivers to quit, either quit or get fired or just not be able to, do the job anymore, which honestly, if they're failing drug tests, hey, more power to them. Let's kick those guys out. I don't want them out here driving if they're failing drug tests. But, there's multiple reasons here, like I said, that they expect 2021 to be pretty good with freight volumes. Another thing they're touting is that with the COVID thing, it is causing people to use less services, go to restaurants and things like that, which frees up more money to buy stuff on Amazon, and stuff through the mail that's got to be shipped to you, to actually buy products with it instead of services. So, lots of different things they're talking about here that's supposedly going to make 2021 and 2022 better. I hope that is the case and we don't have more lockdowns and stuff because of regulation and because of, just the COVID shifting. Like I said, it's mutating a bit and, causing more havoc. So, dear Lord, just help us get through this, please. God, amen. All right, let's move on to some elog stuff. A couple articles here, pretty quick ones. This is on overdriveonline.com. By the way, did you know that Overdrive has a podcast? Well, they do. It's called Overdrive Radio. You should check that one out. You can find that anywhere you get your podcasts now. Or you can just go to their website and actually you can listen to the episode right here on this website. Just follow the link in the show notes. Anyway, this first article is called Log Annotations to Avoid Hours of Service Violations. So this is basically talking about how with this new 14-hour rule, it's kind of with the 14-hour rule and with the split, with the sleeper berth, that how do you take the first, say a 2-hour break, and then how do they know, like if a DOT officer pulls you over, how do they know you are actually going to take the other part of that break? And so they're saying that it's easily fixed by just making a notation, when you take that first 2-hour break and then you continue to drive. During the 2-hour break, put a log note annotation in there that just says, this was the first part of my sleeper berth, my split sleeper berth kind of a thing. So they're just saying, just annotations can really help you, putting remarks in on your logs, to keep you out of hot water. Again, if you want more information about this and, they talked about this on Overdrive Radio, just go to the link in the show notes and listen to it right there on the website or look it up in your favorite podcast app. Now, again, like I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm not even sure that you need to do this, but you might want to cover your butt anyway by doing it. Because like I said, I don't have a sleeper in my day cab, but it does count a 2-hour break or more as extending my 14-hour day. So I don't even have a sleeper berth to finish the other half of that. So how's that work? I don't know, but clearly it's legal because Omnitrax is letting us do it. And I'm pretty sure if it wasn't legal, Omnitrax would not let us be doing that. All right, the other elog thing we got going on here is the FMCSA is eyeing an update to the yard move guidance, and that's the status where you go on duty yard move. It's a not driving situation, and so it's not logged as driving time. Basically, they're just trying to clarify what the actual rule is and what you can and can't do. So the question to them is, quote, under what circumstances may a driver classify the operation of a commercial motor vehicle as a yard move and record it as on duty, not driving time? So what they're basically saying, the answer to this question, and they do say that this is not legally binding. This is just notes from them that is trying to provide guidance to help clarify the regulations. So they're saying basically that you can use the yard move on duty status if you are on a qualifying yard, for instance, an intermodal yard or a port facility, or maybe your carrier in their place of business. You got a big yard right there and you got to, go from the shop to the out to the parking lot or something like that. That would be considered a yard move. Possibly even public roads if those roads are prohibit you from going elsewhere. Like if you're going from one warehouse to another and that is a public road, but it's basically being purposed for moving you from one facility to the next, then that might be considered to be a yard move, but only under certain circumstances. Like if you're at a shipper or whatever and they load you with part of the product and then they say you need to go 2 miles down the road to our other warehouse for the rest of it, that's going to have to be logged as drive time. You can't do on duty. Besides, if there's a speed limit on your on duty, you're not going to want to stay under that anyway while you're out on a public road. So if you want more information on this article, there will be a link in the show notes, and I found this one also on overdriveonline.com. Hey, this next one is a win for truckers. Woo! Especially when it comes to the state of California. Now, normally when California makes a rule or something, just people follow, and I don't know why, because, California is in shambles right now. They can't even keep, electricity to all of the people who live there all the time. They have to kind of alter it. They have to share different days for water in your yard, stuff like that. The governor's a mess. He's telling people to do all kinds of things while he's not doing it. He's a hypocrite, like so many politicians. Heck, they got people pooping in the streets, for Pete's sake, and that's just fine and dandy with them. So let's not follow California's example, and thank God it didn't happen here. California state laws required motor carriers to provide paid rest breaks and regular meal breaks to truck operators. Now, the ATA, which is the American Trucking Association, they went to battle against this, saying, hey, federal regulation should overcome that state law, because truckers got places to be. We shouldn't be forced to stop to take a break. I mean, I was on my way home from Nashville last night, and, it's like a 8.5 hour drive, something like that. Well, that meant I had to stop like 40 miles from my house, take a 30-minute break where I'm just getting tired the whole time is all I'm doing. I actually nodded off the wheel a couple times sitting there, at the truck stop, just waiting for that stupid 30-minute break. Ugh. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, duh, dork, you just said you fell asleep. You must have been tired. No, I was wide awake, live and kicking, but then only when I stopped and started staring out the window did I get tired. Thanks, FMCSA. You're the best. Unfortunately, the flexibility of the new 30-minute break did not help me because I didn't have to stop anywhere along the way. So it's just like a mandatory break like old times where you got to stop for no reason and just make you tired. So anyway, it's kind of silly that California was requiring to do this and requiring carriers to pay for those rest breaks. And, of course, the ATA is looking out for their large carriers. Maybe truckers think they ought to be paid for their rest breaks and stuff like that. But most truckers are eating on the road anyway. We all know that, right? I mean, we got crap to do. We get paid by the mile. So anyway, if you're interested in this, apparently a federal court, a high-level federal court, it says, did side with the US DOT in exempting trucking companies from these California state laws. Now, knowing California, they will probably appeal this, and we'll see. Okay, this next story is a dandy that we've talked about before. Oh, wow. This one's on thetruckersreport.com. I love the title. It says, CDL Mills Rejoice. New truckers can be tested by their own trainers. That's pretty funny. This whole article can be summarized by the first paragraph, so let me just quote it to you. The U.S. Department of Transportation has removed the requirement that the person giving a CDL applicant their skills exam should not be the same person who trained them. Regulators see this as common sense regulatory reform. Others see it as a major safety and fraud risk. I don't know about you, but I'm on the latter side there. I don't see how this could benefit at all. But the FMCSA has gone through with it and said, yep, it's okay. The person who trained you can give you the test. The problem with this is, a lot of these instructors are being, judged by how well their students are doing. So why wouldn't they pass them? It makes them look great. It makes their pass fail rate awesome. They're a great instructor. Everybody passes who goes through me. Doesn't matter that they can't downshift. Anyway, I don't know how the FMCSA can say this with a straight face, saying, let's see, this quote says, the FMCSA believes this change will not undermine the integrity or effectiveness of CDL skills testing. Well, I just got one thing to say to that. Bull crap. So, I wish this was one of those things that could actually be frozen by the Biden administration, but this took place and on December 17th is when the DOT announced this final rule. So it is already going. They're calling it the third-party commercial driver's license testers. So, it's there. They're saying it will get more students out quicker with less hassle. And boy, are they right about that. Guess we're going to see more of these drivers sitting on the side of the road making sandwiches. Wow. Oh, boy. There's just not a whole lot of good news in this podcast today, is there? Sorry about that. All right, let's switch this around a little bit. Maybe we can give some good news to at least some truck drivers with vision problems. Okay, right now, according to the FMCSA, you can apply for an exemption if you have one eye, basically. And you have to, jump through some hoops and, show that you can see and all that stuff. And they're now just saying that they just want to get rid of that exemption altogether and just kind of set some guidelines and say, if you can do these 4 things, then you're good. Right now there are a little over 2,500 vision exemption holders, and they no longer have to jump through all these hoops, to get it done. All they'd have to do is prove this in a DOT test that they can see. And then, just like we have to, like the standards would be lower. So anyway, what they're saying is, the 4 things they need is if you have one eye, or can, partial out of one eye and full out of the other one. Number 1 is you have to, in the better eye, the distance acuity, you have to have at least 20/40 with or without corrective lenses, and you have to have a field of vision at least 70 degrees horizontally. That makes sense. I mean, you can't always turn your head, It's not like our heads are fixed in one place, right? The second thing is be able to recognize the colors of traffic signals. So that's important, of course. You must have stable vision deficiency. I don't even know what that means. But I know what number 4 means. It says you must have had sufficient time to adapt to and compensate for the change in vision. So, if you've lost an eye recently or a lot of vision out of one eye, you can't just immediately go in and do it. You have to actually get used to it, where, you're now used to turning your head more often for the things you need to do to drive a truck. So, I think I just realized what stable deficiency means. It must mean that your eye vision is not going to get worse rapidly. I bet that's what that means. Anyway, yeah, I think this is generally a good thing. Once again, let's get rid of some of this regulation and let people just prove what they can do and get them out here on the road. I got no problem with old one eye driving a truck. Ooh, that came out wrong. All right, I'm going to just delve on and before somebody realizes what I just said. All right, let's go on to more ELD stuff. This again is on overdriveonline.com. What you should know about the looming Canadian ELD mandate. I gotta be honest, I had no idea. I thought Canada was right in line with us, that, ours were mandated back in, 2018. I thought they would be there too, but they are not. Apparently, according to this article, Canada didn't get 2 years to jump from the AOBRDs to the ELDs. They just basically say, yep, you're going to be compliant with ELDs by June 12th. And that is rapidly approaching. So if you are an owner-operator, you probably want to jump on top of that. Again, not going to go into a lot of detail about this stuff. We do have a lot of Canadian listeners on here, but hey, if you're interested in this stuff, head on over to this link in the show notes and check this out if you don't know about it already. Just don't wait until the last second. I still remember the night before our final mandate, and I remember this guy sitting in a Flying J and wrapping an ELD, and he was the look on his face was so forlorn. He looked so sad. It's like he was just facing, I guess I have to do this. And now he's trying to figure it out late at night because it's being implemented the next day. Don't be in that position. Not good. Get ahead of this, guys and gals. Please, for the sake of your sanity, get ahead of it. I cannot believe we are this far into the podcast and we have not yet mentioned autonomous vehicles. That is truly amazing. Well, let's put an end to that. Found this one on the truckersreport.com. This one's called Walmart Removes Safety Pilot from Now Fully Driverless Trucks. Ooh, didn't know this was going on even. Apparently, Walmart has teamed up with a company called Gatik, G-A-T-I-K. I guess that's what it's called. It was a pilot program to test out driverless trucks. So what they did basically was they had a short route between a fulfillment center and a store in Bentonville, Arkansas, which is their home office. So over the past year and a half, the vehicles have logged 70,000 miles driving the same 2-mile stretch of road back and forth. Now, they didn't say if there has been any incidents or anything like that. I wish they had said that, but they didn't. I don't know if that's relevant or not. But anyway, they said they restricted it on purpose to a small area, and those always had drivers in the trucks with them. But now they are going to change that. They are going to go fully autonomous, no humans aboard whatsoever on this 2-mile stretch in Bentonville. Additionally, they're going to expand this program to Louisiana. There is a 20-mile route between Metairie, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Metairie and a Walmart Supercenter in New Orleans. Now, initially, this safety route, just like the one in Bentonville, will have safety drivers aboard, but I'm assuming after they get, 70,000 miles or something, they will eventually switch over to driverless trucks. Again, these are well-marked routes that they travel the same way every time. It's very, it's a very controlled environment, and that's what they're after. And quite honestly, that's what we need when we're talking about autonomous vehicles. That's where these things are going to shine, is things like that. This over-the-road stuff, guys are worried about their over-the-road jobs being taken by autonomous trucks. Don't worry about that for a while. That's going to be hard to fill your jobs. Over the road, something special. Something like my LTL would probably go before an over-the-road job would, because I just go from one terminal to the next. They could probably program that pretty easy if they wanted to. Well, anyway, I got two more really quick stories. Overdriveonline.com has this one, and it is basically a list of all of the drivers on the new FMCSA's advisory panel. You remember in the last episode we talked about the FMCSA was finally getting together a group of truckers and people who work in the transportation industry, safety organizers and stuff like that, so they can question them. Maybe they can, come up with better rules and things like that. And maybe, some of this stupid crap can be warded, can be blocked at the pass, basically pulling a Gandalf into "you shall not pass" kind of a thing when it comes to something like the $2 million liability insurance. Maybe they can head that off at the pass. But anyway, there's a long list of guys on here and gals. Lots of companies that we're familiar with: UPS Freight, YRC, Old Dominion, FedEx, Greyhound, Real Women in Trucking. That's cool. Good for them. Schneider, lots of different names on here. You can see there's some smaller companies too, and looks like some owner operators, some we've never even heard of. So if you're interested in this, I'm not particularly interested in knowing who any of these people are, but I hope they make good decisions for the rest of us. If you are interested in that, check out the link in the show notes. And our last story is good news. I put it back here for good reasons. And, truck parking is always a problem, right? Well, hopefully Loves can help with that this year. They are planning to open 50 new travel stops in 2021. I mean, anybody who has been paying attention at all to Loves and what's going on with them, those truck stops are popping up like zits on a teenager's face. I mean, just erupting everywhere, and which is a good thing, because, hey, I'm all for it. For one, they are, adding some different kinds of restaurants and stuff like that. Of course, a lot of them still have Subways because it seems to be mandatory that every truck stop have at least one Subway. Before too long, I'm pretty sure we'll see one with 2 or 3 Subways in it. But for now, like the new ones are coming out with, they're putting Bojangles in there, which is a great fried chicken place. I love that food. Those biscuits are awesome. And they're staying open 24 hours too. So we have them to thank for that. Loves is actually catering to those of us who drive overnight, which is great. And of course, one of my absolute favorites, Taco John's. There's going to be a lot of Taco John's added to these, which is great because, hey, I just have to say, if you have not tried the potato olays at Taco John's, you're doing it wrong. You're doing life wrong, man. Go check it out. Last year, Loves opened 38 new locations, which added over 3,000 truck parking spaces, much needed there. And this year, like I said, 50 more travel stops and another 3,000 truck parking spaces. So 6,000 new spaces in 2 years. And a lot of these are in really good locations. It's not always like on a major intersection, but it's on like a U.S. highway that really needs some big truck stops out there. So this is really cool. Thank you to Loves for doing this and, all these new facilities. It's great. And hey, the more Taco John's and Bojangles, the better. Just saying. We don't need Subway, Loves. We're just tired of it. Okay. Hey, let me add one more little story on here that I saw just as I was getting ready to leave. TA adds mobile fuel pump features to their app. They're calling it Pump Smart, and this is the Truck Smart mobile app. Well, I got to say is it's about time. They were way behind Loves and Pilot on this. So it's kind of nice they've actually got that feature now. So if you're interested in that, you can go to your Google Play or your App Store on your iPhone or your Android device and, download that app. It's a free app. And hopefully they'll update their outdated points system. We'll see about that when we get there. I mean, does anybody know if they're still doing that print a voucher for your points kind of a thing? Man, that's antiquated. It's really out there. Anyway. Well, we've navigated a very touchy, sensitive news segment this time around. I hope I have not pissed anyone off to the point where they have unsubscribed. Of course, you're not listening to me at this point if I have. Again, my intention is not to make anybody angry. Just need to cover the topics and do it in the best way I know how without pissing people off. So please give me the benefit of the doubt and stick with me. All right. News is over. Thank God. You know, with everything going on out here, it's still pretty tough for us truckers. That's why Pilot Flying J wants you, the trucker, to know that they appreciate everything you do for America, as do I. And to show their gratitude, they want to give you more rewards points, which adds up to money. It's called Push for Points, and it can get you up to 4 points per gallon faster while you're racking up those hard-earned miles. Yep, you can reach up to 4 points per gallon after only 6 qualifying fills. Now, the Push for Points is only available in the Pilot Flying J app, and it's only for a limited time. So you got to get to your app store on your phone and download the app. It's free, easy to sign up, and the first thing that will happen is when you open that app, it's going to say, would you like to activate Push for Points? And of course, you would. Tap the button and you're off to the races. Now all you have to do is burn off some miles so you can fill your tank with at least 75 gallons of diesel. From there, you just watch your point balance grow after every qualifying fill. So let's do the numbers. This means that you'll be earning 2 points per gallon after 2 qualifying fills. After 3 fills, you're going to get 2.5 points. 4 fills get you 3 points. 5 fills get you 3.5. And finally, after 6 qualifying fills, you'll be earning 4 whopping points per gallon for the rest of the month. And when you start a new month, you just have to tap that activate link again and do it again. That is, as long as Pilot Flying J is offering Push for Points. It's a limited time only, remember? Better get in now. So, you got all these points now. What can you do with them? Well, your body needs sustenance. You need to go in there. You can use it at some of the fast food restaurants. You can use it at the deli. Pretty much anything in the store you can use it on. You can even use it to reserve a parking spot or get Wi-Fi credits at participating Pilot and Flying J locations. And of course, let's not forget something to drink. Soft drink, bottled drink, or delicious, delicious coffee. Make sure you put lots of foo-foo in it. So again, from Pilot Flying J, they want to thank you, the driver, for everything you do. Be sure to stay safe on the road out there. Terms and conditions apply for Push for Points. See pilotflyingj.com/app for all the details. And thanks to Pilot Flying J for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump.
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
All right, my good friend driver Chris Mack is back to share another Trucker Grub. Take it away, Chris.
Hello, Trucker Dumpers. Driver Chris Mack here, back for another Trucker Grub. This one is actually a twofer, in my opinion, because not only is it a great place to eat, it's a convenient place to park, and a place where parking is otherwise hard to come by. I stopped there both because of the food and the parking, which is free, in a manner of speaking. That is to say, they do ask you to pay $15 to park for the night. But if you purchase at least $15 worth of food, they let you park for free. This place is called Old Rudy's Barbecue. That's old, O-L-E, not old, O-L-D. It's in Jackson, Georgia, I-75, exit 201, which is 26 miles south of I-285. So if you happen to be misfortunate enough to be delivering in Atlanta and it's after dark, You already know it's going to be hard to find a place to park
Yep.
without paying for it or going 30 or more miles out of your way. That's why I always go down there to Jackson, because the way I look at it, I love their barbecue. I'm going to pay for it anyway, so I might as well park there. They have a large gravel, dirt parking lot. I would say there's room for 40 or so trucks.
Wow.
Now, if any of you are familiar with that exit, you know there are 4 truck stops there. But finding a place to park at any one of them, especially after dark, is nearly impossible.
Yep.
That's where Old Rudy's parking lot comes in handy. In addition, there is a BP station next door that actually sells diesel. And it is also a convenient place to go in the morning, take care of your paperwork, get your coffee, or whatever else you need to start the day. And this is by no means the cheapest place to eat barbecue, so it's not really hard to spend the $15 there. But it's worth it. Trust me on that. I usually have the ribs. They're my favorite. Large rib plate, which is $14.75. Comes with 2 sides and bread. I've also had their pulled pork sandwich and sausage. It was all excellent. Some you may consider it a little pricey, but I don't mind paying for the quality of food. Like I said, they have ribs, pulled pork, and sausage. They also do brisket and chicken. Hope you enjoy and be safe out there.
Sounds delicious. Thank you, Driver Chris Mack. I had looked for them online and could not find an official website for them. So I put one to the yelp.com. They have good reviews on there, some photos of the restaurant, things like that. So you can go check that out or just walk in there yourself. Again, Driver Chris Mack said that was at I-75 exit 201 in Jackson, Georgia. Sounds delicious. Now I want some barbecue. Thanks a lot, man. You're a jerk. Hey, if you have your favorite place to eat, that you can access in a truck or nearby truck parking, please let me know. Submit it, just like Chris did, to truckerdump@gmail.com. If you'd like to do it, but you have no idea how to do it on your phone, just send me an email, truckerdump@gmail.com, and I'll walk you through the process. Again, thank you to my longtime friend, Driver Chris Mack, for always submitting to the show. That's awesome. Thank you. You know, I meant today's main topic to be the first episode in January for a specific reason. You'll see why. But unfortunately, life got in the way, and I released my Christmas episode late. So instead, we're going with this now. This is a follow-up to episode 149, which aired back in September. It was called Job Hopping in Trucking. If you haven't heard that one, check out the link in the show notes or go to abouttruckdriving.com and search for TD149. So like I said, that one was all about job hopping and if it's okay to job hop, when is it okay? How long do you need to stay at a job? All that kind of stuff. So now the next logical question is what this one is all about. I call this one, when should you look for a new trucking job? Well, here we are again. It's the start of a new year, and we are all eager to see the craptastic, crappy crapfest that was the year 2020 in our mirrors. I don't know about you, but I'd rather use Tabasco sauce as eye drops than go through another year like that. What a mess. So since we're all looking to start fresh, let me make a suggestion to you. Look for a new trucking job. Now hear me out. I'm not saying you should quit your job just for the sake of starting afresh. What I am saying is that you should look around to see what options are out there. The problem here is complacency. We've discussed complacency about driving safety on a couple of earlier podcasts, and heck, even earlier in this podcast. But now we're talking about a different kind of complacency. Job complacency. Listen, I get it. No one likes change. If you're happy where you work, why would you want to look for another job? In true Trucker Dump style, let me tell you a personal story that will hopefully drive my point home. And I apologize if you've heard this story before. I know I've mentioned it a little bit on here as we've gone along. So let me tell you a little bit about my job change that took place a couple of years ago. I was completely comfortable at my previous job. I knew how things worked and I figured out how to get the most out of it. I genuinely liked my dispatcher, which is crazy, and I was generally treated with respect. I had a pretty good idea how much money I was going to make each year, and I assumed I was at the top of the pay scale for truckers. Assumed being the key word here. Heck, I like this company so much that I worked for them for 5 years the first time. When the evil overlord decided to get back into team trucking, I quit there so we could go to work for a company who had better team operations. But once the Great Recession of 2008 hit, she left the trucking industry for good. So what did I do? Well, to emphasize even further how much I liked my last company, and to emphasize my job complacency, I didn't even bother to shop around again. After being away for only a year and a half, I went straight back to him. I never cracked a trucking magazine, never talked to another trucker, or even visited a trucking jobs website to see what the options were. And I continued to work there for the next 8 years. So if you do the math, that's 13 years of my life I gave to this carrier. Was I happy there? You bet. But just because you're happy where you are, doesn't mean you can't be happier somewhere else. At some point around the 11th or 12th year with them, I finally started to long for something that would get me home more often than every 3 weeks. Now, to be fair, that company policy was only 2 weeks out, but I always chose to stay out 3 weeks to maximize my money. So that was on me. But it was still 2 weeks out. Also, for years I had been hearing conversations and casual eavesdropping that there were trucking jobs out there where you could make a lot more money than I was making. Now, I'd heard this from many different drivers, but I always just chalked it up to another trucker lying about how much money they made. I mean, I'm assuming we've all heard the trucker bragging about making $100,000 a year working for 40 cents a mile, right? Whatever, dude. Well, it turns out that not every trucker is full of bovine dookie. I can tell you from personal experience that the stories are true. But I digress. Let me make a suggestion to you. Do what I did and put out some feelers. There's no obligation here, just humor me. Sign up with job sites like Indeed.com and Monster.com and set up email alerts for the types of driving jobs you're interested in. There'll be a link to both of those in the show notes. I get nothing benefit here, so it's not an affiliate or anything. You should also peruse websites like alltruckjobs.com or cdljobs.com, or a frequent source of trucking news on the Trucker Dump podcast, thetruckersreport.com. Just check them out and see what trucking companies are offering nowadays. You can even take a different approach to this with an app like Truck Driver Power. I'll have a link to that in the show notes too. The Truck Driver Power has a unique thing in it where you can set the parameters of your pay, your home time, your trailer type you want to pull, all the type of stuff that you're willing to take, and the trucking companies then come to you, but only if they meet that criteria that you've set forth. How's that for an interesting concept? I mean, how many times have you been harassed by a trucking company that's calling you even though, because they don't know your criteria, and they call you up and they're offering something way less than what you're willing to take? Well, how about you set your guidelines, what you're willing to take, and then let them take it over from there. Ideally, they won't call you unless they can match it. Again, that's truckdriverpower.com. Check that out. The idea with all this is simply to make you aware of what's going on outside your comfy little workplace. Again, there's no harm in doing this. You aren't being disloyal to your current employer. You're just being smart. Now, I'd like to tell you that as soon as I put the feelers out, I found the perfect job and jumped on it immediately. But that's not the way it happened. I honestly didn't keep track, but I'll bet I had my eyes peeled for at least a year, probably closer to 2. Now, granted, my standards were very high because I felt like I was at the top of my pay scale already. I honestly wasn't having much luck finding anything, so I was admittedly disheartened before I finally saw one of those coveted jobs I've been waiting a lifetime for to pop up in my Indeed.com email. I applied with them and got a phone interview. Whoo, well on my way. The job was offered to me, but sadly, it wasn't going to work out. It would have been a great job for a younger trucker who had some time to work their way up the ladder, but this 50-plus-year-old dude didn't have the patience to take a $20,000 per year pay cut and unsteady work until a bunch of old-timers retired. Sure, this discouraged trucker was still driving for a carrier that he liked, but something was missing now. I had been so close to landing that perfect job where I would have been home every day. With that door closed, it seemed like it'd be a long time before I found another golden egg. Despite my pathetic self-pity, I continued to keep my eyes open. One day I saw the name of an LTL carrier in my home area. LTL stands for less than load, by the way. The advertised pay was equal to mine and the home time was far better. But instead of seizing the day, I started doubting again. Would this new job really pay what they advertised? What if I quit only to find out I'd been lied to? God knows we've all had that happen, right? I chose not to even bring it up to the evil overlord. After seeing the ad run again a few months later, I finally brought it to the evil overlord's attention. Now, she wanted me to get off the road as badly as I wanted it, but she's even more risk-averse than I am, and that's saying something. While my willingness to take risk had expanded, hers hadn't at all. She knew what to expect with my employer. Like me, she had grown comfortable. She convinced me not to pursue it. Every 3 to 6 months from then on, that advertisement peeked its little head up out of a hole like that pesky little groundhog in Caddyshack. I swear I saw it taunting me with a funky little dance once. But you know, he who does not ask does not receive. After the third or fourth job taunting, I finally chose to act. Wisely, I chose to call the listed telephone number instead of exploding a bunch of dynamite on a golf course. I spoke to the guy who would be my boss. He was really laid back and didn't appear to be in any hurry to get me off the phone, which is a good thing considering how many questions I ask. Anyone who knows me, who read How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, or is married to me could tell you that. 4 times I talked to this guy for approximately 30 minutes each time. After each call, I'd inform the evil overlord what I learned, and I'd give her a little nudge. Now, anyone who knows her knows she doesn't bend easily. Heck, my idea got knocked down so many times, I felt like Rocky Balboa. During this time, I found and questioned every driver from this company that I could find. They all said that the advertised yearly pay would only be that low if I was lazy, which I'm not. They told me the pros and cons, and then every one of them said it was the best trucking job they'd ever had. And their many years with the company seemed to back that up. And just like Rocky in the big match, in the end, I wore her down and claimed my victory. She finally said, "Fine, go ahead and apply." When I hung up the phone, I may have even shouted, "Lorinda!" Or not. You know, I later found out she only relented to get me to shut up about it. Well, what do you know? Apparently, it does pay to be annoying sometimes. Regardless, when you're married to someone called the evil overlord, you take the win however you can get it. I gotta tell you, this new job wound up being better. Much better. To make a long story slightly shorter, this is by far the best job I've ever had, trucking or not. I get paid a good mileage rate, I don't have to mess with customers, I have fabulous insurance, I get paid for holidays, I've got good vacation time and sick days, and I'm guaranteed to get home every weekend. Heck, I deadheaded 607 miles home this weekend. But that's not all. There's more! I get paid a good hourly wage for everything from fueling, to layover and detention, to dropping hooks, to loading and unloading freight, to waiting to get a tire fixed, or heck, even when stuck in traffic due to a wreck. To put it in plain terms, my gross pay is about 25% more than my old job. It'll probably be even higher next year since I had 10 weeks of lower pay in 2020 thanks to the cursed COVID. Now here's the even crazier part. My bring home pay is almost double what my old paycheck was, largely thanks to the vast difference in insurance premiums. Now I'm not saying this extreme pay hike will happen for everyone, but it certainly won't if you're so focused and content with your current job that you don't look for other opportunities. If you don't take anything else from this podcast, take this. Basically, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm getting paid what I deserve. Now I realize I'm only slightly less than 2 years into this job, but I have yet to dread going to work on Monday night. Can you say that? Even if you can, how do you know your work life couldn't be even better? Now, is this job all peaches and cream? Of course not. There are some really weird company rules, and the equipment I drive is anything but stellar. But hey, you'll be surprised how less stressed you are about breaking down if you're getting paid for all your time. Seriously, I'll never forget the first time I had a flat with this company and I was all stressed out about it until I realized I'm getting paid to sit on my butt while they change a tire. And it's a good wage too. It's not like $5 an hour or anything. Good wage. But you know, there is a bad aspect to my job. Quite honestly, the crappiest thing about my current job is knowing I could have been doing this for the past 11 years if I hadn't been so complacent with my old job. If I had taken those lying truckers at their word instead of assuming the worst, I would have been about $200,000 richer and I would have been home to enjoy it a heck of a lot more. And that number is not an exaggeration at all. I did the math. So to sum up, I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. Even if you're totally happy with your current job, just put forth some effort to see if you could be happier somewhere else. And hey, I'm not just saying that either. I'm still doing it. I just told you how pleased I am with my current job. But remember, I also thought my previous job was the cat's meow. So if I go back to sticking my head in the sand, then I shouldn't be surprised when I miss another golden opportunity. Right now, it seems unlikely that I'll ever find a better trucking job, but then again, that's the kind of stinking thinking I had before I found the best job I've ever had. On the other hand, if you're currently unhappy with your pay, the home time, the respect you're getting, or anything else, then what the heck are you sticking around for? Start looking for that new job today. Now let me reiterate something once more in case you didn't catch it the first 18,000 times. Job complacency is a mistake. You'll never know if there's a better trucking job out there if you aren't actively looking. This is why I still get an email from Indeed.com every few days, because you just never know. I encourage you to do the same. I beg you to do the same. Yes, I realize at this point I'm harping on it. It just kills me to think of the complacent version of yourself 11 years down the road realizing how much home time and or pay you missed. But even if you've got the best job you'll ever have, at least you'll never have to look back and wonder if you reached your full potential. Because trust me here, that can only make you feel like a craptastic, crappy crapfest of a loser.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
All right, let's knock out a few from new listener Stevie. Well, she's not a new listener at this point, but she was back when she was listening to these. She was listening to Trucker Dump 56, which I called Funkin' Trunkin'. No, I didn't say that. That's wrong. You see why I got to be careful here. It's called Funkin' Truckin'. Ooh. Anyway, she writes, "Hey Todd, cheer up, buddy. Things could always be worse, I suppose. Yes, I was in a major funk at this point in my life. I did not want to be driving a truck. I was not accepting my fate, and I was not able to get out of the truck. So I was very depressed. So anyway, she's cheering me up here. She says, but hey, it's nice to see my last name put to good use. Funk. I think Tower of Power said it best. Funk the dumb stuff. Huh. I didn't know her name was Funk, so it's Stevie Funk. I think her actual name is something else. I can't remember what it is now. What is it, Stevie? Anyway, last name of Funk is pretty wild. Man, my voice is clogging up on me. Yeah. Anyway, she says, I'm with Helmet or Heels, who used to write in a lot. I don't know what happened to her. She says, you need to be an international blogger. Well, I guess officially I am, because I have listeners in Australia and Canada and Europe. So I guess that counts, right? She says, I seen in another comment you being a teacher, a good suggestion too. Well, I kind of look at what I am doing as teaching, especially newer drivers. Not really telling anything to older drivers, but newer drivers seem to be getting some decent information out of it. She goes on and says, oh, and tell the evil overlord I know what she's going through with that course she's taking. Took the same one myself in college in 26 and 27. I'm rooting and cheering for you both. Yeah, boy, that class that she's talking about is the anatomy and physiology. It's widely known to be one of the hardest classes in all of college. I mean, that's why they put it right up front for the medical people. Honestly, if you're going anywhere into the medical industry, that's right up front. And they figure if you can't get through that, you're never going to make the cut. So they put it right up front, and it is a nightmare. I will have to say though that the evil overlord aced the first semester of that. There was 2 semesters, and I think she got like an A- on the second semester. So pretty darn good for that class. But it's funny. This is such an old article, and I was looking back at it and realized it's 10 years old. So I've been podcasting. No, I haven't been podcasting. I have been blogging that long. This was a blog originally, and later on I turned the whole thing into a podcast. So that was 10 years ago. So, back in 2010. Wow. Amazing. It's kind of scary I've been doing this this long. Sometimes I wish I just drop it, but I enjoy it once it's done. It's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot less Destiny PlayStation time for me, but I'll sacrifice. I enjoy it. She goes on in the next email. She listened to Trucker Dump 58. How much is too much? This was the one where I was being pushed over the edge by the company. They were making some really stupid rules, and I was just angered at being, treated like an imbecile, and, yeah. So I wrote this one. She says, hey, Todd, or should I say Chris? Anyway, good letter. Oh yeah, I wrote a letter to the CEO and I posted it on here. So, she says, hey, good letter. Hope you get at least something out of it. Personally, I'm all for ramming fists in faces, but that's just me. Yes, Stevie. Nope. Not a very, fist in face kind of guy. I just like to do it in a very polite way with a sternly worded letter. Yes, I'm a wimp. I realize that, but that's what I am. And she goes on to Trucker Dump 59, A Trucker's Home. This is the one where I was talking about how many truckers live with their parents, even when they're old, or they'll live with a sister or a brother or something like that, because quite honestly, if you're an over-the-road trucker, you are gone an awful lot of time, and it really just sometimes doesn't make sense to own a house. It's just kind of pointless if you're only there 2-3 days a month, right? So that's what was going on here. And she writes, hey, Todd, #1 fan here. Ha ha. Yeah, I'd laugh about that too. There's nothing to be a fan about here. She says, is it pathetic to live at home with parents if you're a truck driver? Nah, I don't think so. We used to live with my father for many years. We would come off the road at the end of a carnival season. Yes, she's a carnival driver, in case you're new to the show. Or she used to be. She goes on and says, and we would be home for 2 to 3 months before heading back out again. We also had a 42-foot fifth wheel trailer that tagged along with us every stop during the season. Our home away from home. That's what truckers call their sleeper berth. And she goes on, oh, and congratulations to you on the meeting with the bigwigs. That's awesome. Hey, maybe a future in upper management for you after all, huh? Take care, my friend, and safe travels to you. Well, no risk, Stevie, of me going into upper management. I once tried to get a dispatcher job. I was just trying to get off the road so badly that I tried to get a dispatcher job, and they told me I was not qualified. At the time, I think I had like 15 years of driving experience, and they said, you're not qualified. You don't have a logistics degree. So they're hiring some kid out of school with a logistics degree who's never set foot in a truck and never has any idea what's going on. But, that's not surprising nowadays, because these companies, they really don't want drivers being dispatchers, because former drivers understand what current drivers are going through, and they will often side with the driver over the company, and that is not what the company wants. So it's very rare nowadays, especially in the big fleets. It's very rare that you will find a driver who is a dispatcher, at least in my experience. If you out there listening and you know better, please write in and tell me, truckerdump@gmail.com. That has just been my experience. And let's go ahead and get one more from Stevie today. She writes, she listened to Elog's A Second Look, which I don't remember what episode that was, but she commented on it. I'll have a link in the show notes to all of these links anyway, if you're interested in going back and listening to some of these old ones. She writes, "Hi, Todd, your pal Stevie here. I would normally make my podcast comments on the podcast. This time I decided to do it this way instead. Hope you don't mind. I have a tendency to be long-winded, as you may have already noticed." Aren't we all? She says, anyway, here we go. I don't have any experience currently with elogs. I am currently not working as a driver, but it sounds like you're having plenty of experiences on your own as is. My sympathies. Yeah, I was going through, this is when I first got on the elogs, and I did a lot of episodes about elogs and the frustration I had with them. I actually like them now, but back then I hated them. Anyway, she says, this whole situation sounds like the reasons old vets in the carnival industry have all but been chased off for good, only to be replaced by the Mexicans from across the border for cheap. Pretty much why professional drivers you see throwing in the towel and retiring from truck driving. These new rules and laws just make it that much easier to get rid of professional, experienced drivers. I'll take my paper log books any day over these new fanangled elog devices. Another job occupation I got into recently is bike messenger. It's similar to being a trucker in a way, except for a few details. One, it's a bike, not a truck. She says, although we use truck tailgates and sidewalks to speed us along the streets sometimes. Number 2, we don't have to keep a logbook, just a bill of lading. And number 3, we don't have to look for or pay for parking. Yep, that's for sure. Do have to worry about get your bike stolen, though. Similarities. Number 1, she says we get paid poop wages, my word, not hers, per delivery, just like you truck drivers do. Number 2, we can still get traffic tickets like you guys do as well. Didn't know bicyclers could get traffic tickets. Interesting. I've seen some that need to get some. She goes on and says, my opinion, elogs are crap. You said that, Stevie. She says, and all drivers are pretty much doomed. Well, thanks, man. Wow, I feel awful now. I'm just going to go out and shoot myself in the head. She says, okay, end of speech. Safe travels to you and my friend, and all the best to the evil overlord. Oh, one last thing. I'm with the consensus you should write a book. Well, funny you say that, Stevie, because I have wrote a book. I've written 2 of them. One's called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. The other is called Trucking Life. You can find both of those at abouttruckdriving.com. Or if you want to get the combo pack, it's abouttruckdriving.com/combo. Or if you just prefer to get them one-off, you can go to Amazon, iBooks, wherever you get your books. So, Stevie, thank you for writing in and continuing to write in. We still got plenty more from you later. I think I got at least 6 or 7 more from you still. Let's go on up to Bernard, who goes by the name BJ. His handle is Rerun. Cool. He's driven for 25 years and he's out of West Virginia. All right, Bernard, BJ. He writes, in Trucker Dump 150, you touched on school time requirements. I went to a West Virginia school accredited nationwide. I'm not going to name it or give it bad ratings because it got me where I am today. My grandfather drove truck for 43 years for the same company. I have been with him several times over the years growing up and believed I knew trucking. I had friends who were truckers. I thought I knew trucking. One friend was my trainer. Our CDO course was designed for 160 hours. We had 2 groups separated by physical ability and quick knowledge. I tested out in 3 weeks and was on the road with my trainer 23 days after starting the class. Looking back on this now, I don't feel it was enough time. Just because I drove the truck and passed the test, I was given the license and sent to work. No real perspective or challenges to overcome. Welcome to trucking. He goes on and says, as for my friend who trained me, I was sent on a bus with an Army combat badge, B-A-G-E, I don't know what that means, with 2 weeks worth of clothes and $135 in my pocket to Prime Incorporated orientation in 1995. 21 years old, the youngest to ever start for them to this day. After 4 days of class, I was put in my friend's truck to be trained. We ran team for 6 weeks. He sat in the passenger seat for the first 2 hours, then went to bed until I got tired of driving 16 hours later. After he took over, I was exhausted and went to the bunk where it took me 4 hours to go to sleep. Every time the truck moved, I was nervous. Boy, that is so true, Bernard. BJ, when you first get started in the trucking industry, boy, especially if you're doing team for whatever reason, it is so hard to learn to sleep while somebody's driving. Not only with all the bouncing, but like you said, just the nervous factor, It's just interesting trying to learn to sleep in a moving truck. Anyway, he goes on and says, you mentioned you cannot sleep with someone else driving. It took me a while for sure, but I don't believe that is proper training, running team. I believe there should be an instructor or trainer present for several weeks. I totally agree with you, BJ. Totally. Yeah, and quite honestly, that is the way Prime runs it now. They do not run it as a team. They are required to be, at least for the first good portion of it, they are required, the trainer is actually required to be in the front seat with the student. So that's good. They have changed over the years, so that's good. And he goes on and says, as far as the driver from Chicago who had 2.5 years experience training 3 other drivers, wow, how does he know how to tell someone else how to do it? I don't know. I don't remember that driver, honestly, but 2.5 years, I think does that say years? I can't tell. I think that's what it says. 2.5 years. I think I'd be okay with somebody training with 2.5 years. They may not be as experienced as somebody with 20 years, but let's be honest. Somebody with 20 years is probably way less likely to want to tolerate a student. When you're new to this industry and you're still kind of gung-ho about it, you kind of want to pass your knowledge along. So in that case, I guess a newer driver kind of does make more sense to be a trainer because at least they're enthusiastic about it. But as we all know, it would be much better if you could get somebody with 10, 15, 20 years or more experience to do all the training. Just can't do it. You can't force people to train, unfortunately. He finishes out by saying, anyway, I believe there should be minimum mandates on school and training as well as minimum requirements and seat time for training. My opinion. I totally agree. Like I said, a couple episodes ago, we were talking about how they were trying to put some guidelines on, what was required of trucking schools, and they put it off again. They just put it off. Nobody got around to it. So we'll see if this new administration gets to it. They like regulation quite a bit. So maybe that will happen. So anyway, BJ, thank you for writing in. I appreciate you taking the time to do it and for telling your story. And lastly, I got one of those short emails that I love so much, and I just grin every time I get one. This is from a guy named Topher Smith. It just simply says, are you still going to make podcasts? Been missing them. Well, I went on to discover that Topher, his real name is Christopher with a K, which is far cooler than the Christopher that I have with a C. And he is 15 years old. So I was interested, in what the deal was with him listening to the podcast. And he said he's wanted to be a trucker for a long time and he plans on doing it as soon as he can get his CDL. So, hey, Christopher, hopefully you still got the gumption to do this when you get out here, because we need people in this industry that are fired up about it, that want to do this job, not that are just hanging on to do it because, it's a job and I'm forced to do it because it pays well. We need people out here who love the job, who love the lifestyle, who love everything about trucking. And you sound like you're going to be great at this. Keep it up. Keep gung-ho on this stuff. Give me a shout anytime you want any information about it, or, you had a question, what's going on. Sounds like you're pretty much caught up on this stuff and you're listening to the Trucker Dump podcast, learning. That's awesome. You're getting a good start on this thing, man. But, he was right. I did fall quite a bit behind there, right there in, November and December. And, well, that's the way it is. But, boy, that video review of the Garmin Diesel OTR 1000 took a long time. But I was very happy with the way it came out. If you have not checked that out, I will put a link in the show notes. I've had some views of this and some comments, mostly positive. Well, pretty much every comment was positive. So if you go check it out and leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, that kind of thing, I'd appreciate it. Could always use more, right? So anyway, thank you, Topher Christopher, for, writing in, and, you got your episode not long after you wrote in, and, now you got another one. So hope you're happy. Hang on, wait for the next one. It'll be a while probably again. All right, next up, we're going to hear from Greg T. Longtime listener, Greg T. He sent me a funny little meme, basically. Let me read it to you. It says, I volunteered for the COVID-19 vaccine. It's the one developed in Russia. I received my first dose this morning at 6:20. It is safe, and I'm okay with no side effects whatsoever, and that I feel, and then it trails off into Russian writing. That's pretty funny. It's funny. The further along in the message it goes, you see more Russian alphabet letters in here. It really cracked me up when I got this. So thanks for the chuckle, Greg. I really appreciate it. That's pretty great. Regardless how you feel about the vaccine, that's funny right there. I don't care who you are. All right. Well, that is going to do it for the podcast. Man, this is going to be another long one, of course. Aren't they all anymore? I ought to quit just saying it and just expect it. Anyway, thank you, Stevie, for the email, Bernard, BJ, and Topher, Christopher, and thank you to driver Chris Mack for submitting the Trucker Grub. Well, it's 9:24 in the a.m. I've been up all night doing this. I still have the outro to do. I still have a couple of ad spots to do. And then I got to edit all this while I'm on the road this week. So I guess I better get off here and get some dang sleep. All right. I hope that guy tuned his guitar. Let's go. So, what are the chances that I've convinced you to keep your eyes open for new driving opportunities? If my influence over you is as good as it is over the evil overlord, then I'd say, well, next to no chance. But hey, if you've got a similar story, or heck, a complete opposite one where your job change totally backfired, please tell me all about it via email or audio comment at truckerdump@gmail.com. You can find everything else I do at abouttruckdriving.com. Hey, have you told anyone about the Trucker Dump podcast yet? I'd sure appreciate the word of mouth promotion. But as always, I'm just glad you're listening. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. Despite my self-pity, despite my pathetic but only under certain circumstances, if I can't say circumstances, apparently.